Welcome to episode 15 of Marathon Talk, powered by Abbott World Marathon Majors. On this week's show, a surprising result for the great Eliud Kipchoge at the Boston Marathon. A superb win for Hellen Obiri. Two dominant performances from the Wheelchair Series champions. We look ahead to the TCS London Marathon. Plus, Martin talks to the incredible Chrissie Wellington about her very special job at the forthcoming TCS London Marathon. All right, let's go.
Deena, how lovely to hear you and see you again. How are things? What have you been up to?
Well, I'm still buzzing from this Boston Marathon. We're recording just hours after the champions have been crowned, but my daughter, I'm finally home after a month of traveling extensively, and I was home, dropped my daughter off to ski and got a call a couple hours later to pick her up. She broke her arm falling. She was doing a jump in this terrain park and fell on her pole, on the basket of her pole, and broke her humerus really high up. So she's not in a cast, she's in a sling. And so I'm here taking care of her. I feel so bad, but I'm spoiling her the best way mommies know how.
And how long does that mean she's out of skiing action for?
Yeah, she's 6 to 8 weeks out, so she's missing her last competition. But she's in really good spirits. As long as she's not in pain, she's in really good spirits. So she's hanging in there. I'm going to steal her away and do some mommy and me beach time with her later in the week. So
when you or other runners listening to the show, you would get injured, and sometimes it puts you out for 6 or 8 weeks, and you think, oh no, I've kind of got to wrestle my way through this next 6 to 8 weeks. So if someone said to me now, right, you're going to break your tibia and you're going to be out of running for the next couple of months, I'd be like, oh no. And it would be a bit of a wrestle. How do you think she's going to cope with it? And what wisdom do you have for her to help her cope?
That's a great question because it can benefit our listeners. She's going to cope with it exactly how I tell her to cope with it, which is, listen, you could focus on all the things you're missing out on, the miles and fitness building you're missing out on. But what your body is demanding of you right now is to focus on getting healthy. So everything in the day is focusing on getting healthy. We're throwing spinach in those smoothies to help build her strength. And
she must love that.
Yeah, well, she doesn't know because all the pink fruit takes away the green color. So they still look really pretty. But that's the focus. Your body needs you to focus on gaining strength and being healthy so that you can start from a good platform, a solid platform. So that's her focus. And that's what anyone's focus should be. If they're struggling with a little bit of injury, whether big or small, the focus is always on being healthy because that's when we can operate at our best.
Are you injury-free yourself after Paris? Have you how did you kind of recover after that race?
Yeah, thanks to foam technology, Martin, I recovered just fine back to running with my teammates. So I'm super happy. The last time we talked, you were riding your bike. You were on a two half marathons you had run. Is your streak continuing? Are you still doing it?
It is.
Great.
It is. I've done a couple of royal flushes where I've been picking up the pace, which I've enjoyed. I've done a couple of interval sessions, only the classic 6 times 3 minutes. Once 5 times 3 because it was too windy and I binned the last one. I know. I can do things like that.
Last time you kind of threw your wife under the bus saying that she only was running 2-minute intervals insteed of the 3-minute intervals.
She was. Yeah.
And now you're bagging it.
Yeah. We call her half session Liz. No, gosh, lucky she doesn't listen to the show, right?
Yes.
I'll tell you what else I did. I went to my spiritual home of running. I ran along the Southwest Coast Path in North Cornwall, which I just love. I enjoyed a couple of really beautiful runs along the coast path just this past weekend. The sun was out. It was just, fantastic. So, when you think, sometimes when you go for a run, it simply can't get any better. I did 8 miles in a place I love on the North Cornwall coast and just kind of loved it. Could have run all day. I had to get back for some kid things.
You've been there a few times, and every time I talk to you after you visit Cornwall, you're on this high, your cup gets filled there. And it's so great to know that a place can do that for you. And I think summertime is your time to shine. You seem to just get out of that winter funk and you are
Coming
just
into
riding
summer. We're in
high.
British summertime, aren't we?
British
We're in
summertime.
British summertime. We're in like proper marathon season. We're right in the middle of it. A load more about Boston coming up. Now, we have to talk about the Boston Marathon, which was this past Monday. But to kick us off, we actually did manage to catch up with Abbott World Marathon Majors head of digital and social, Danny Coyle, when he was live from the press conference from a big hotel, the Fairmont, I think it was, in Boston. And I apologise a little bit for the audio quality, but it should really give you a feel to the excitement of the press conference. And as we were watching Danny, there's so much going on behind him. And, you know, Deena, I guess we're privileged in many ways that we've both been in those kind of press conference centres at World Marathon Major Race Week. Like, what was it like for you to actually be in a centre like that as an athlete?
Yeah, you know, it's good and bad because we don't win them all, right? There's sometimes you walk into that room with your head held high and a big smile on your face, and other times with your head hanging low and you're still trying to digest what happened out there on the course. And so Danny was privy to all of that. You could just hear all the chatter behind him going on in that press conference. I wanted to be a fly on the wall, but we got up close and personal with Danny. We're so grateful for his insight. Let's take a listen.
Now, right now, you can probably hear a little bit of background hum and noise and excitement because we are joined by the head of digital and social media at Abbott World Marathon Majors, Danny Coyle. And Danny is at the press conference over at the Boston Marathon to give us the latest scoop. Danny, how are you?
I would say there's hum and noise and excitement. And there's also a bit of shock.
Yeah.
I think I would describe it as, because Eliud Kipchoge didn't win.
Yes, you're fresh from the battle. Like, what's the fit you are in? I'm looking at, and Deena's on the call as well, and we're looking at you sat at what looks like a very fancy space with a lot going on.
Yeah, I probably usually couldn't afford a ticket to a room like this, so I feel very lucky. It's I don't really know how to describe this architecture, but it's certainly ornate. Let's give it that. And it's got a blue sky on the ceiling, which is the only blue sky in Boston today, because I'm looking at a big screen in front of me of runners streaming across the finish line, and it is throwing it down out there still. It's been a really, really wet day for those runners.
And where are you? What's the name of the place you're at?
So I'm in the press conference at the Fairmont Hotel, which is probably 200 yards from the finish line, give or take. So really close, and there's plenty of happy people looking at these runners coming across the line. But yeah, wow, that's been a struggle for them today.
And in the media center, there's obviously so much to talk about, some highs and some lows, because not everybody walks away the winner. What's the main storyline that you're hearing people talk about?
Well, I mean, it's whenever Eliud Kipchoge is running a marathon or a world marathon major, it's very hard for him not to be the story. But you can't take it away from Evans Chebet. Nobody's gone back-to-back in Boston for a long time. I think 2008, Robert Chariot did it. He's done it. He did it in the third fastest time we've ever seen win a race in Boston on the men's side. So, you know, that's quite a feat. And he could be the man to take the crown this year as far as the men's number one marathon runner goes. So I have to say, at the moment for me, and she's a friend of the show, we had her on a few weeks ago, Susannah Scaroni, she won the race by quite a decent margin, even though she had to pull over at the side of the road, rummage around in her seat and pull out an Allen key and tighten up her wheel. Now, that just doesn't happen to you every day, does it? And she didn't even get overtaken at that point. So that was a great highlight, I think. Really good to see.
My heart was racing when you could tell she was having some chair problems and pulled over. I felt so anxious because at that point she only had like a 30-second lead on the rest of the field. But she opened it up and finished. So I think maybe she was competing off of adrenaline from having to pull over to the side of the road. She won by a literal mile. Like sometimes you use that as a figure of speech, they were talking about it on the ESPN coverage, but she literally won that race by a mile. It was such a dominant performance. She's had quite a year. She's our previous series champion, so it's fun to see her still on a roll.
Yeah, and I spoke to her in the week, and she kind of said this race is all about who can be the best coaster, right? Who can go down the hills with the least amount of fear, the most amount of speed, and you take that speed then into your uphills. And she's really good at climbing, so she did enough to limit the damage on the downhills because Manuela Shah is really good at that. And then she just left them all in her wake on those uphills. So, really impressive. She's in great form.
So 4 champions. You had Ellen O'Beary on the women's side take that crown.
Yeah.
Marcel Koog win by a course record in the men's wheelchair division.
He won by about 10 minutes, didn't he?
He could have boiled 2 eggs, maybe 3 eggs, depending on how you like your eggs. But that was dominant performance from him. The women's race, Deena, was really good. It was really good. It was a slow first half. It was a very, very large pack, and nobody really. I mean, it was really impressive to see what Emma Bates did, because at one point she looked like her day was done in that lead pack, and she got herself together. She got back into it, and then she was at the front. She had this huge grin on her face. If you were watching the broadcast, it was fantastic to see. She was loving life out there. Didn't quite have it in the end, but Helen O'Beary, stellar track career. Didn't have a great day in her first marathon, which was New York last year, but she turned up today, and she just when she turned the afterburners on, that track speed, there was nothing anyone could do about that.
It certainly worked in her favor. And the men's and women's races played out so differently. Evans Chebet showing that experience really pays off on the streets of Boston. But on the women's side, Helen O'Beary, this is only her second marathon, and she really just took it to the rest of the competitors in the last kilometer of the race. It was 2 very different races set up, but on a drizzly Boston, impressive indeed. Danny, what was the sense at the 6-star finishers tent? How are runners going after that journey, and how many are we looking to crown this weekend?
Well, it's a race record for Boston, so I think we were expecting somewhere around 710 6-star finishers. So that's the most we've ever had in Boston. I did hear from somebody a couple of weeks ago, we might have the first ever female Aborigine Australian 6-star finisher. So nice story there. I'll be following up on that one. Yeah, the 6-star finisher family never fails to throw up some fantastic stories. One of them, friend of the show again, Alexandria Williams, who listeners will be familiar with from some of our earlier episodes. She's going for her 3rd attempt to finish this race. I'm tracking her on my app as we speak. We'll maybe have to update the listeners on our social media channel to see how she did. Crossing my fingers for her to see if she can get over those Newton Hills and get that 6-star medal at long last.
Oh, well, we'll be thinking of her.
Come on, Danny. Speaking of Newton Hills, come on, you've glossed over it, haven't you? You've glossed over it to this point. I want to know, when he started to look in pain, right? When the goat started to drop off the pack, what was the feel like in that fancy room? Was there like
Martin's
was there a hush of silence?
You're
as
asking
everybody
the
went,
hard questions.
What? Come on, Danny, give us the gossip.
Someone dropped a teacup behind me. I heard that smash on the floor. There was a bit of a sharp intake of breath, because it was one guy, Gabriel. I'm going to mess the pronunciation up here. Gabriel Guille from Tanzania.
Yeah.
He's got a PB of 2:03, so he's absolutely nobody's fault. Do you know what I think? I think Eliud, watching that race, I think he just tried to run everyone out of it right the way through. And I think he paid for it, because when somebody had something in the tank to go, and it was that gentleman, he didn't have an answer. I think he was hoping that there would have been a few more had tailed off by that point. I think it was about 19 miles. He went, and everyone just kind of looked and went, he's not going to recover that. The gap was huge in a heartbeat.
Right.
Really strange to see.
It's not the way you run Boston. You don't try to run it from the beginning. You basically start running in the Newton Hills is when you should begin your crusade. And that's exactly what Gabriel Guy of Tanzania did. He kind of smelled blood in the water, seeing a little bit of struggle just before the appropriately named Heartbreak Hill, that he smelled blood in the water and took a chance to make a move right when Eliud Kipchoge was suffering. What a brilliant tactic. And he ended up in a podium finish. So that's great. 2nd place for Gabriel Guy, who really broke open the race.
Deena, you'd never expect it to have been Kipchoge's blood, right?
Yes.
It's like, okay, so often when we're talking about races, we're talking about the time that Kipchoge turned the screw. And this time it was all about having the screw turned on him. Right.
Yeah.
So, Danny, there must have been looks over people's shoulders. And, I can just see the press keys frantically going of people thinking, oh, no, like I could get this next bit of press really right or really wrong. Like, what was your take? Because you also run the World Marathon Major, Abbott World Marathon Major social channels, and you're trying to think, okay, I need to call something here. I need to report this. But were you thinking he's gone right off, he's blown the gasket, that is it, his race is over? Or were you thinking, okay, there's still a ways to go, and it is Eliud Kipchoge, and he's only ever lost twice. A bit of rain might not stop him.
Yeah. Those first 6 miles put them on pace for 2:01:54, which was crazy. And at that point, you think either he is superhuman and he's going to do this and he's going to do it his way, or he's going to pay for it. And it turned out that he paid for it and he wasn't superhuman. And to be honest, that gap got so big so quickly, it looked like that was the day was done for him almost straight away as soon as that surge went in.
But he ended up kind of, I don't want to say struggling in because it's Kipchoge, but he ended up, rolling in 6th place.
Yeah. I mean, it's astonishing to think about that. 6th place, 2:09:23. Is that his slowest marathon that he's ever put in? I'm not sure. You know what I did think when he did struggle at 19 miles? I thought of London 2020. Remember that race?
Yeah.
Small course, small loop in London, no crowds, horrible weather. Same thing happened. I think he came 8th. So maybe it's the rain.
Doesn't like the rain, and but there's been no feedback as yet. I mean, you're right in the heartbeat of the press centre right there, right now, right live, because we're talking to you literally just hours after the event has finished. In fact, there's still thousands of runners still out there on the course. Mm-hmm. But any feedback on explanations or whys?
Not yet. No, I think he was supposed to make an appearance, and he might still yet. Maybe he's got other commitments at the moment. But my good friend Lorna, who works for the Boston Athletic Association now, she did she let the media know that they are awaiting his arrival time. So maybe we will hear something, and we'll have to update listeners perhaps on our social channels. But yeah, no words from the horse's mouth as yet as to what might have gone wrong.
And what about you, Danny? This is you are right in the middle of busy season. In fact, you're so busy that you left your passport and underpants at the hotel at the hotel room, and you've had to go back and get them before you take a flight back for the TCS London Marathon, of course, which for you kicks off in about 24 hours' time when you get back and you're in London all week.
Yeah. I got an email from the friendly people at the hotel to let me know I'd left my personal effects there. So luckily the hotel I was in was only about 400 yards away, so I was able to go back and reclaim them. But such is life of the travelling roadshow that is the Abbott World Marathon Majors. This is the first year since 2019 that we've had the schedule back to what everybody knows it to be, which is 6 days between Boston and London. So you can't complain from that point of view because it means we're back to normal. But yeah, it is one epic week. I got here on Thursday. The sun was beating down. It was about 28 degrees. Dina, I'll have to convert that for our American listeners. I'm not very good at those. You have to add a certain amount and times it by 2 or something like that.
It was in the 70s, yeah.
It was like the summer.
Yeah.
It was crazy. And then it just turned over the weekend. And today, I would probably quite enjoy running in this kind of temperature. But obviously, it wasn't so good for some of the elite athletes. So, yeah, we pack our bags. We get on a plane tonight. I'll be at the running show in London tomorrow, watching some men with some hammers build the booth. We're going to have a giant tumbleator all weekend at the expo for runners to come and have a go on. And we do it all again on Sunday.
The tumbleator actually made it into the New York Times, a featured piece on the New York Times. It was pretty exciting to read. You're still spinning plates in Boston. What are you looking forward to most in the next marathon coming up next weekend?
I think the women's race is going to be unbelievable on Sunday. I think you've got the great unknown of Sifan Hassan making her debut and what she could do. You've got Bridget Koskaj, world record holder. London is fast and it is world record capable if the conditions are right. Perez Jepchir, Olympic champion. It is the Boston women's field was loaded and the London women's field is exactly the same. So that race is the one that does stick out for me. wheelchair racing, if you contrast Marcel's performance here last year, it took him until the final corner to get past Daniel Romanchuk. So we might see some fireworks there between those two.
Fantastic. I hope you have enough adrenaline for the London Marathon next weekend. Danny.
Coffee, Deena. That's the answer.
Artificially awake, indeed. Yes. Danny Coyle, the head of digital and social media with Abbott World Marathon Majors, hot off some crowning of champions at the Boston Marathon. Thank you for being with us, Danny.
Thank you very much. See you soon.
Well, it's great to hear from Danny live from Boston. He certainly sounded like he was having a great time, but it wasn't a great day for Eliud Kipchoge. It was very wet, rainy, and perhaps that rained on Kipchoge's parade a little bit, because despite all the pre-race talk that he was aiming for a 5th majors win, he really wanted to become the first man to win all 6 races, but it didn't turn out that way at all, did it, Deena?
It was such a surprising race because Eliud Kipchoge really pushed the pace in the beginning miles. He was on course record pace from the very beginning, just really trying to stamp his authority and dwindle down that pack of very capable men. And it was right before the Newton Hills, before the 20-mile mark, he missed his water bottle and then struggled a little on that very first hill. And it was Gabriel Gay of Tanzania who decided to make his move right when he saw that little bit of struggle in Eliud Kipchoge. And they ended up marching away with previous champions, Evans Chebet and Benson Kipruto, going with him. It was such a shocking place. You'd think that the world record holder would fade a little later in the race, but that is not what happened. He faded like just before the hills were beginning.
And that's in Boston when the race really starts, right? I mean, I've not run Boston, but I've interviewed a lot of people who have, and a lot more experienced than I am. And of course, you know it pretty well. So, isn't that where Boston really starts? And it was almost where the race ended for Kipchoge.
It's exactly right. And he ran it in a way that every rookie is told not to run it. You don't run the first half of Boston aggressively. You wait to save some of that energy for the hills, because the second half of the race is so much more challenging. And I think that really was the factor here. It wasn't that he was ill prepared, although we have yet to hear any admittance of that yet, because we're still so fresh off of crowning the champions just hours prior to recording this show. So it was a shocking day, but probably not for Evans Chebet. Evans Chebet and Benson Kipruto are actually teammates, so they trained together. They were well prepared for this and very confident coming into today's race. So it was such an exciting race, not how anyone thought it would play out. We were all visualizing this battle down Boylston Street, and we didn't make it that far into the race before Eliud Kipchoge faded.
Yeah, I wonder how you feel as Kipchoge. It would be lovely to understand a little bit. Maybe he'll give us in the press conference, but I wonder what you feel now, because here's a man who's achieved everything there is to achieve, well, apart from winning all 6-star Abbott World Marathon major events, but almost everything there is to achieve in marathon running. And look, he's not getting any younger, is he? Mm-hmm. He's not getting any younger. You could potentially argue he's reaching a twilight point in his career where maybe he's starting to question things. And this is one race. I wonder what's going through his mind about longevity now.
Right. But I mean, if you just step back and look at his career as a whole, since he became a marathon runner, this was only his second loss. This is the second time he's lost a marathon. And before that, he has been dominant. Was it London and London?
Did he lose twice? London 2020? He was 8th, and then maybe a race back in 2013. I could have got that wrong.
Okay.
I want to say back in 2013, things didn't go well. I can't remember which one it was.
Well, we'll duke it out off air, who's right and who's wrong, Martin. But but the moral of that is that he's not. I mean, he hasn't lost a lot of races.
No.
He's not only won races; he continues to lower his world record. He shatters course records every time he shows up to race. So he is impressive every time he goes out there. That's a big weight to have on your shoulders every time you go out there. Yeah. But again, just as I say that you need to have experience going into the Boston Marathon, on the women's side, it was the exact opposite. Hellen Obiri, in only her second marathon, she ran New York in the fall last year. In her second marathon, pulled away, showed her brilliant track speed, which has gotten her 2 silver medals in the Olympic Games, 2 world championship titles. She turned on that strength, that speed at the very end of this race to claim victory. And it was so impressive. In the race, it was American Emma Bates who led most of it. She was leading the charge and keeping the pace honest through many, if not most of those miles. She ended up in 5th
She
place.
was 5th.
Yeah.
2:22:10. Yeah. 5th. Now, I don't know much about Emma Bates, Deena. Tell us a little bit about her.
Yeah, so she is a podium at the Chicago Marathon, and so she's a great runner. She ran 2:22:10 here. She was on the World Championships team last year in Eugene for the marathon. So she's always up there, and she really thought coming into this race she was in American record condition. She was fit enough to run the American record. It wouldn't have counted in Boston because of the point-to-point and net downhill, but she was in that sort of fitness. And you could see that confidence in her when she was leading this race. She looked better than any other women when the pack was narrowed down to 6 to 8 of them. She looked the best. She was my pick out of that group. She looked so good, so composed and put together, while everybody else kind of had a hitch in their stride. Hellen Obiri is not the prettiest runner when she's coming in. Her arms are punching across her chest and she's really muscling her way to the finish line. It reminded me, as I was watching her today, of Paula Radcliffe, who's going on the 20th anniversary of breaking the world record in London. She was not the prettiest of runners, right? With her head bob, she ran on her toes, which you weren't supposed to in a marathon. You're supposed to be a heel striker. She defied all those rules. So I think in what I was learning today is that run the way that feels right to you. A lot of runners ask how they should run. Run the way that feels naturally, because your body defaults to your most efficient. And so today was a reminder of that.
And we already had a little chat with Danny about the amazing chair races, Susannah Scaroni, whose wheel came loose. She had to stop and pull over, and pull out an Allen key and fix it, whilst racing, but still nobody caught her. She had time to do that. She won comfortably in 1:41:45. And in the men's race, Marcel Hug, absolute domination. He won by more than 10 minutes. I think 10:34 he did, breaking his own course record. He hasn't lost a race that he started since Chicago in 2021. So he's on really good form. There was a ton of other people on really good form too. At the time of us recording this show, there's still many 6-star finishers still battling the rain. We are expected to have somewhere in the region of 700 6-star finishers, which is a race record total for Boston, and hopefully one of them will be Haroon Motat, last week's interviewee, Deena's just pulled him up on the Boston Marathon race app. He's 80% through the race as we're recording, with a target estimated finish time of 4:20, did you say?
4:26. His pace is getting faster as the race goes on, which is the opposite of Eliud Kipchoge. So Haroon is actually running smarter than Eliud Kipchoge did.
Yeah, great. Won't he be pleased to know that? Won't he be pleased to know that? Right, Deena, shall we look ahead to London? It's going to be a belter. London, of course, on Sunday, April the 23rd, 2023. Last year's event was in October, so this is the first time we're back to April for, do I say, the world's biggest marathon? I can't, can I? It's just my home marathon, the TCS London Marathon, 6 days after Boston. There's a lot to get excited about.
In the women's field, it is looking to be a shocker. There is so much talent, people that have already arrived at the marathon scene, but also some debutantes that are really highly anticipated. Sifan Hassan and Eilish McColgan are both running their debuts. They have so many accolades on the track and world records and national records to their names. Can they make the jump to the marathon distance? That is always the question. And I am so excited to see how they do stacked up against such a talented group that includes Olympic champion Paris Jepchirchir, defending champion and world 10K record holder Yelem Zerf Yuhala of Ethiopia, Bridget Kosgei, the world record holder, broke Paula Radcliffe's record in Chicago years back. It is just the hardest race to call.
This is almost impossible to call, isn't it? Because, going into Boston, you might have said, well, Eliud Kipchoge, standout favourite. And look at what's just happened. Sifan Hassan on the track. I mean, just watching her on the track she's just this sort of graceful dynamo, right, that tears people's legs off. And of course, can she translate that into 26.2 miles on the road? And McColgan, she's so gutsy. She's just fresh out of a 65-minute half marathon British record and a, almost sub 30-minute 10K British record. It's their debut. I wonder if Bridget Kosgei is going to, go out hard, having broken the world marathon record. What's she going to do? Because when you've got track runners of the capacity of Hassan and McColgan, if they're with you, you don't want that, right? You don't want that in the last mile. Kosgei has to do something. Right. And this race is so exciting to me because there really takes a dynamic for records to fall. And that dynamic is having a pack that's talented, having people to run with. It is the weather cooperating. So have we obsessively refreshed our weather app yet? And then it takes someone in that talented pack to take the bull by the horns and be that alpha and really start pushing the pace from the beginning. So if all of that unfolds properly, we could see national and world records fall again on the streets of London. The course is notoriously fast. When you get the talented group of women that are lining up on that starting line, the 26.2 miles, the 42 kilometers that are in front of them are going to tell us not just who the champion is, but really if more records are going to fall that day. It is going to be a fantastic race. Yeah, I mean, so here we go. Currently, the forecast is low wind of kind of 6 to 9 miles an hour, temperatures of between 6 and 15 degrees, and cloud cover the whole day. So, I mean, that's pretty perfect, isn't it?
That is perfect. And unlike Boston, which I was refreshing my weather app all week long, it changed within hours. The temperature was changing. London stays pretty constant. There's no nor'easter that can drop down from Alaska really quickly and wreak havoc on your racing plans. So the weather in London looking great for not just the racers up front, but for everyone out there.
Yeah, it's a big men's race as well. 4 of the 5 fastest men in marathon history on the start line. 4 of the 5 fastest. That's 4 men with personal bests inside 2:03. Mosenet Geremu of Ethiopia, who's run 2:02.55. Bahanu Legacy of Ethiopia as well, with a PB of 2:02.48. Kelvin Kiptum, who's run 2:01.53. He won Valencia in 2022 with the fastest debut in history, 2:01.53. And Kenenisa Bekele, who can never write off the second fastest man ever with a PB of 2:01.41. Wow, it's going to be some go.
And with Bekele, he has great days or he drops out. I feel like he doesn't just have decent days. So he's kind of like the wild card in all of this. But Kelvin Kiptum, I am so impressed with his racing, his composure, his speed. how fluid of a runner he is. If I were to put my money down, it would be on Kelvin Kiptum. He just had an amazing Valencia marathon. It was such a beautiful race to watch. Fast indeed, and he's got the men around him to help push him a little faster.
So you've just called the men's race. Are you going to do the women's?
Oh, should I?
We didn't. So, do you know what? I'm going to put myself right on the line. I'm going to say McColgan's going to take it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know.
The debutant is going to win against the Olympic champion, the defending champion, and the world champion?
Yeah. Yes. I think you'll eat your hat if that comes true. Wouldn't that be amazing?
It would be.
Wouldn't it be amazing? Imagine what her mother's whispering in her ear the night before. If Liz can actually whisper, I imagine that, of course, her mother, former winner of the London Marathon, and I wonder
what advice she's getting.
Wouldn't it be exceptional? Well, she's got a 65-minute half, and she's got all the credentials to win London. So, and the crowd in London, as you know, it's like nothing else for the home runner.
Absolutely.
Mo Farah is also in the field for the men's.
How did we not even mention Mo Farah?
Yeah, I don't think, judging from his run in Gabon a couple of weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago, I don't think he's in cracking form. It feels like it might be I don't know. It might be a party run for Mo Farah. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, there you go. So if I'm going to go McColgan, who are you going with?
Well, if you're going with McColgan, I'm going to have to go with Yelemzer Fuhla of Ethiopia, the defending champion.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see you. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Now, this spring season, we've been talking a little bit about ways to help you get ready for marathon running, ways to run really great marathon races. But given the weekend's result, we thought we'd just very quickly talk about what to do when races go wrong, when your marathon doesn't go quite to plan. A little bit of advice, perhaps, for Kipchoge here. When races go wrong, Deena, how do you deal with it? How should people deal with it?
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing to talk about because more often than not, we're disappointed and we sign up for our next race because we want to do better. We know we can do better. Being disappointed is way better than being dismissive or unaffected by your performance. So disappointment, in my mind, always means that you care and that you're invested and you want more out of yourself. So use that deeper meaning of caring about what you're doing to really figure out how you grow from that moment. Think of what you did wrong, what you could do better next time, and use that knowledge going forward. So use it as a growth moment, a moment to grow from and become stronger or more enduring, whatever it is you need in that moment. So it could be your greatest educational tool in growing as an athlete.
What about having a whine? Yeah, come on. What about having a right old moan?
Yeah.
Sometimes you know it's not gone right. People around you know it's not gone right. They say to you, how's the question? How's your run? You don't go, oh, it's fine. You want to go, it was absolutely shocking.
Yeah.
You explain it, but there's nothing, I don't think there's anything wrong with having a big old whinge. Have a whinge, get your whinge out of your system, feel rotten for a bit. But typically, what I don't think is very healthy approach to race reflection is dwelling on a poor performance. You're exactly right. You've got to take the learning, but when the learning is right. So a little bit of loose and very general guidance is if you're a moaner and you're going to have a whine and a whinge, set yourself 24 hours of which to do that, and then you're done. You're done with your whining. And then then after 24 hours, it's really time then for that powerful reflection to come in. That also gives you a really important moment to pause because you can't process things when you're emotional, right? It's really challenging. And so the way in which you reflect on a race and the way in which you process what went right and what went wrong immediately after the race, when you're all emotional and frustrated and angry and disappointed, that's not the same as when you've had a little bit of time to decompress. So pause and then process later when you're not emotional.
That's great advice. And as you're talking, I'm even thinking like set that alarm on your phone 24 hours later to be like, okay, on with it. How are you going to move on from this moment? So to our listeners, it's about using this sport to keep growing, not just in your speed and your personal best, but in life, and take those lessons to heart.
For today's Marathon Talk interview, I'm joined by four-time Ironman world champion Chrissie Wellington and two-time Ironman finisher Sam Perkins. Sam, as a former Ironman triathlete, completed Ironman in 2014 and in 2016. He also ran the Nottingham Marathon in 2014. Yet in 2019, Sam was diagnosed with motor neurone disease, which has progressed quite aggressively. He's now permanently on a ventilator and just 3 weeks ago had a feeding tube inserted. But on Sunday, the 23rd of April this year, Sam, along with Chrissie and a supporting team of Frank McGowan, Steph and Tom, will be realising one of his sporting dreams when he completes the TCS London Marathon as part of an assisted place. He founded his own motor neurone disease charity called Stand Against Motor Neurone Disease, and they've raised over £150,000 for research into treatments and potential cures for motor neurone disease. And this event is about Sam and his team really raising profile. They're on a mission to raise awareness and funds through his participation, and I am really excited to hear about his journey. Sam, welcome to Marathon Talk.
Hi, Martin. Thanks for having me.
Chrissie, welcome to Marathon Talk.
Fantastic to speak to you.
You may notice the audio quality. You'll have to be patient with us today because, as I said in the intro, Sam's on a ventilator, so you will hear the noises of the background ventilator, and sometimes Chrissie and I may need to pause because it's really important for us to hear Sam. And although he says we will struggle to shut him up, I want us all to have the opportunities to talk. So, Sam, I'm going to start the conversation with you. You were diagnosed with motor neurone disease back in 2019, and clearly life for you is very different than it was 3 or 4 years ago. When and how did the idea for completing the TCS London Marathon this year come about for you?
I think it was not long after I was diagnosed, actually. There's a famous triathlon duo called Team Hoyt, where it was father and son combo that help each other through triathlon. The son has a severe disability, but I was obviously aware of those as a triathlete. I thought, do you know what? Even though I've now got this disease, I'd love to give that a go, to experience that race day atmosphere one more time. But then, of course, we had a global pandemic, so that kind of delayed that for the year. But last year, I was lucky enough to complete the run leg of the Outlaw Half Triathlon in Nottingham, and it's kind of a bit of like my own story in triathlon, really. Doing it once wasn't enough. I've crossed the line. I thought, I should do something else now. So through the course of building up to that triathlon, I was lucky enough to get to know Chrissie, and she actually said to me, she's never what's next. And I said, well, I'd love to do London, Chrissie, but I need a world-class athlete to push me around. So kind of tried to rope her in from the outset, really.
Did you ask Chrissie if she knew any world-class athletes?
Yeah, I think I asked that now. I don't think I was that comfortable right now. I was still a bit in awe, really. Now she's just Chrissie, but back then she was a bit of a god.
Yeah, Sam.
She still is really, but yeah, we can't let her drift that.
Yes. What I love is your description of I wanted to have an experience, an experience of the celebration of participation, another go at doing an event. And Chrissie, for you, events was your life for many years. I briefly mentioned in the beginning, you've been multiple Hawaii Ironman world champion amongst many other events and accolades in the sport of Hawaii, but in the sport of Ironman triathlon and long distance triathlon, I think you probably handed it to me at the Outlaw a couple of times too. But what does this mean to you? How is this different? And when you met Sam at the Outlaw, why did you think this is something I want to do?
Yeah, I've often felt and commented on the fact that, professional sport especially is incredibly selfish and quite self-indulgent. It's all about you and your performance, and you have an incredible team around you to facilitate that. And of course, it's a privilege to be able to, perform on the world stage as a professional athlete. But for me, that wasn't enough. And I want to use what fitness I have left 10 years post-retirement and the platform that I have to enable someone else to realize their dreams. And it would be so gratifying and satisfying to me to enable Sam to cross the finish line, even more so than it would be for me to cross the finish line in a personal best time, I think. And to do so as part of, a team is just so incredibly unique and life affirming. And I think this is just a once in a lifetime opportunity that I'm just so incredibly grateful for.
Yeah, I mean, and Sam, it's not just Chrissie. Sam, tell us a little bit about the other members of your team. I mentioned them briefly at the start, but Frank has a 2-hour 14 marathon PB. I just want to check something. He's not planning on pushing you round at that speed, is he?
Well, if he is, he'll be on his own. Including me, I think. Yeah, I think Frank is a former elite athlete, and he varies from he's got into the world of care. So he is actually one of my professional carers, which is a special bond in itself, really. It takes a special sort of person to be able to do that. But from my point of view, obviously there's a lot of risk with having someone who is, I am permanently attached to a piece of life support equipment. If something happens with that, the risks are, you don't have minutes to react, you have seconds. So having somebody who is as experienced as he is in that team, I mean, I honestly think without him, this size wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
He's obviously to have Chrissie alongside me is from somebody who's from a triathlon background. She is, my sporting hero. So the fact that she's doing this for me to help me achieve my dream is mind-blowing, really. But Frank, in many ways, just completes that team. And the other two members are Tom Rowland, who is my stepbrother.
Mm-hmm.
It will be his first marathon.
Wow. Okay.
And he is also a qualified doctor trained to be an anaesthetist. So again, another really important pair of hands. And the last but by no means this member is a girl called Steph Cobb, who I grew up with in my triathlon club. And when I started training in my late 20s, she was probably in her early teens. But we actually ran at about the same pace.
Okay.
And she has to be, in terms of my own athletic career, she's demonstrated more guts and more determination, sheer force of will than anybody I've ever trained or raced with. So in my triathlon last year, she did the swim level. And when I asked her to do it, she said, well, I can't just swim. Can't I tow a boat with your body weight in it?
Wow.
So I went, well, as long as you know it wasn't my idea, it's absolutely fine. Yeah, so incredible team.
Yes, you have an incredible team around you, and you touched on the risk management of somebody with motor neuron disease participating in okay, so let's really start to understand, because people may be listening to this before they participate in this year's TCS London Marathon, and for them, as hard as running a marathon is, and we've all run, Sam, you've run a marathon before, Chrissie, you've run many, and I've run a couple as well, and so we understand as people what it means to run a marathon. But for you and your team to complete the marathon is going to take a whole load of other logistical and practical kind of operational requirements to be able to push you around. The fact that, actually, you need to take your entire life support system with you for 26.2 miles. You've got to carry everything that you need and have everything pushed with you to cover all eventualities. Give us an insight into the, perhaps the chair that you'll be using and the equipment that you'll need to carry.
So the chair that I will be in, it's a personalised assisted wheelchair. So the most important aspects of that really are ergonomic, in terms of keeping me comfortable and having the right pressure relief equipment under my bum. Because I now spend my entire life on my bum. So it's really important that that area kind of gets looked after. In terms of the actual life support, we'll have a ventilator on the back of that chair.
Mm-hmm.
But then we also need an additional running buggy, which has a spare ventilator, a bag with spare consumables, spare mask, like a pulse oximeter, stuff that helps me go to the toilet, which I may have to do at some point. And we also have to traipse around a mechanical prophysis machine, because one of the things I can't do because my diaphragm doesn't work independently is I can't cough, so I can't clear secretions. But that means if I get one, it can stop me being able to breathe. So if I need that equipment and the team, I'd have to use it. I often say that without the invention of the electrical motor, my life would be massively different. And because I'm on the horse, I'm on beds, I'm in electric wheelchairs, this will be the longest period I've had without an electric motor with me for probably since I was diagnosed, to be honest. So I just use Chrissie's motor instead.
So Chrissie, talk to us about what you're feeling around the participation in the event. Given that there's a lot of responsibility being a part of that team. Yes, you'll raise awareness, and yes, the five of you will have what I'm imagining will be a very emotional and rewarding day. But it also comes with responsibility, a different kind of responsibility around finishing an event. How are you feeling about that opportunity, but also that responsibility to get Sam round?
I think, anyone that's completing a marathon, and especially one as high profile as the London Marathon, will feel a degree of nervousness and apprehension. So that, I'm definitely feeling that. But, that, like you quite rightly said, that responsibility layers on an additional kind of element and a layer of nervousness. I think I take great comfort and confidence in the fact that Tom and Frank are part of the team, and that's really important. That Sam has on-hand medical care. You know, I have skills and expertise, but they don't lie in caring for Sam's medical needs. So I'm really, really happy that they are part of the team, but we'll be heavily reliant on them to, you know, perform all of the kind of medically related tasks that Sam might need. But it was my responsibility to be in the best shape I can, to be able to, you know, to push the chair.
Yeah. Do you mind me asking how heavy the equipment and the chair and Sam, like do you know what the total amount that you guys have got to push around is? Do you know that?
Me in the chair has to be close to 100 kilos.
First 5K will be flying down.
just a little, Sam, the first 3 miles are a little bit downhill. Just don't let them let go. Don't let them let go. You'll be like ending up in the Thames.
Well, Martin, we did a practice run in March, a very snowy day in March, Sam's home in Nottingham. And it was quite challenging to maneuver the chair. I mean, there are not a lot of turns and, you know, twists and turns in London, but there are some. You've got to be aware of the corners, the cambers, things like that. And so we're just learning how to maneuver the chair, so that most importantly, Sam is comfortable, and that we take the racing line, of course, but making sure that he's really comfortable is incredibly, you know, was incredibly important. So that training day was really valuable for us to practice pushing the chair, but also making sure that we could get the running buggy set up so all the equipment was safe and secure. So I'm glad we had that practice run, and I think it helped allay some of my fears. So I'm a lot less nervous going into it than I would have been had we not had that practice.
And Chrissie, what's the push strategy? So, you know, are you thinking, right, we'll do 15 minutes each? Have you spoken about how that's going to work? And Sam, have you got? So, Chrissie, you can answer first, but then Sam, I wondered if you've got any thoughts, because you're going to have to keep your team, you know, in check, on track, motivated. Like you may need to crack the whip when, you know, Wellington stops smiling.
Does that ever happen?
So, Chrissie, what's the strategy, and then Sam, tell me about, you know, what you're going to do to keep them on track.
I think the first thing to say, we're so grateful to TCS London Marathon for enabling us to participate, and for them to demonstrate their inclusivity by accommodating wheelchair-assisted athletes is really, really important. But not only that, their rules are quite spacious in terms of the number of people that can push. So you can have, as we've said, up to 4 people pushing the wheelchair, 2 at any one time. And so that's great. So the responsibility for pushing the wheelchair doesn't lie with one person, which I think is great. And for us, it also enables us to have a team-based experience, which is fantastic. So our strategy is to have 2 people pushing. So 2 people push, one person will push the running buggy, and one person will, you know, wave and hug people and things like that. And then we'll swap over. But we're thinking kind of 10, 15 minutes, but I think we're going to play it very much by ear. I don't think we wanted to be too wedded to a strategy, but I think we'll start off with, you know, 15 minutes, and then rotate out and rotate in, and then, you know, see how each other's feeling. But that constant checking in is really important. But also alternating your pushing arm as well. You obviously push on either side, so alternating that, and we'll stop if we need to. Like Sam said, we might need to stop for toilet breaks as well. So there will be opportunities to regroup and reevaluate as we go. But I mean, Sam wants us to break the 2:15 mark. I think we're going to. We're going to be going at a more sedentary pace than he might otherwise have wanted. So, you know, it will give us the opportunity to talk and chat and really enjoy and embrace the experience, because that's really what it's all about, and giving Sam the best and most comfortable experience possible, and for us just to all really, really embrace the phenomenal atmosphere of the London Marathon.
I think in terms of firstly, just to agree with everything that Christie said about TCS London Marathon, their support has been phenomenal in terms of, we had a conversation with them very early on where I said what the considerations needed to be. And the response was essentially, it doesn't really matter, we're just going to make it happen for you. So to have an organisation like that just completely jump on board with the mission was really quite humbling, I think. I think in terms of how I'm going to keep them all motivated, I've got quite a dry sense of humour. So I think that'll probably work for about, I reckon, 17, 18 miles. But then, we're all kind of long distance athletes of various quality. We know that there comes a point where it's a battle in your head, and regardless of going a bit slower than some people may have gone in the past, there will still be moments where people have doubts and feel bad. And I think when they actually hear me say something genuinely encouraging, that'll probably have quite a big impact. Because I'm quite so used to the what's wrong with you, what are you moaning about, at least your next work. That kind of thing.
We shall save the encouragement for the end and stick to the dry sense of humour for the first 2/3 of the race. Sam, I think isn't it great to hear that an organisation really is getting behind being genuinely inclusive of participation and genuinely recognising the difference that seeing different people participate can have. Not only on obviously on you and your team, for which this experience will be wonderful, but also on the millions of people watching, whether they're watching on the streets or whether they're watching on the television. To see, and look, Sam, you've completed endurance challenges before. You're a true athlete, but you're facing your toughest challenge. What you're facing in and living with at the moment is, your participation is going to be an inspiration to everybody watching. And I don't say that lightly. Your capacity to embrace fear and unknown, even around the risk management things, and living with your motor neuron disease from day to day. I hope that people watching you will celebrate your participation, will support you, will encourage you, and your team will go to Stand Against MND, standagainstmotorneuronedisease.com, and find out more about your story and look to support you. Chrissie and Sam, I'm going to ask you one more question. What is it that, Chrissie, what are you most looking forward to? Having done London before, you know how amazing the streets and the experience is. What are you most looking forward to as being a part of this journey?
Giving Sam and the rest of the team the biggest hug when we cross that finish line and seeing the smile on Sam's face.
And Sam, for you, I know you've done some Ironman and things before, but this is going to be one more marathon with one big difference for you. What are you most looking forward to about the experience?
It's difficult to pick one element, but I think you used the word there as what I'm most looking forward to. Is the experience. Triathlon can be well supported, but you tend to really get that cheer in the finish shoot at London. That's all the way around, and to do that and to be surrounded by an amazing team helping me to do something that was, it was taken away from me. I thought it was gone, and they're bringing it back for me, and I never thought I'd have that experience. So I think when Chrissie gives me that hug, there won't be a dry eye in the house. I don't think, Martin.
Problem is, Sam, after pushing 400 kilograms for a few hours, she's going to stink.
Yeah. Very sweaty hug.
Listen, both of you, Sam, I appreciate the time. You've given me a little bit longer than I thought we might speak for. So, look, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your journey, and Chrissie, thank you so much for being part of the team that's not only giving Sam the opportunity to participate in TCS London Marathon, but also raising vital awareness for a stand against motor neurone disease and research and palliative care for people that are living with that. So Sam, thank you for your efforts. I hope you both have an amazing race. Good luck. I hope to see you when you're down at the running show. It'll be exciting. And if you do see Sam and Chrissie and team out on the course, please give them the biggest round of applause and cheers and shouts. Let's make sure Chrissie keeps on pushing. Have fun, both of you, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Martin.
That is all for this episode of Marathon Talk. I hope you enjoyed the interview and the insights from Danny Coyle at the Boston Marathon. Martin, I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Until then, what will you be up to?
Well, I am off up to London. Hopefully I'll get to see Danny. I'm up to the running show, doing 5 presentations a day on the main stage at the running show in the centre of the stage, like just talking to people about getting used to what to expect on race day and having a brilliant run. I'll probably get out for a few runs as well along the Thames myself when I'm there. I tend to go in the morning and go out for a few runs along the Thames and around. It's called the Ring, the Capital Ring, which is like a trail greenway that goes all the way around London. Actually, I run a little section of that. Tends to be my couple of runs when I'm there. Otherwise, if you are in London and you are at the running show, give us a wave and say hello. Are you up to anything, Deena?
Yeah, I just want to say there's so much great insight that comes from your interviews with people on the main stage. So sit back, kick up your feet if you're running, and get inspired. It's really, really a great place. I will be watching from home. I cannot wait to watch the TCS London Marathon unfold, the wheelchair races, the men's race, the women's race, all of the 6-star finishers that will be crowned there in the Mall, in the backdrop of Buckingham Palace. It's the most royal finish in the world. I will be at home watching, but also spoiling my daughter on her spring break. So a little beach time with her. Enjoy the run, listeners, wherever it takes you.